I'm standing outside the registry office in Athens, Greece. It was 2015. I went to find out a bit more about my family, particularly in Thessaloniki, my dad's side of the family, and which I didn't. But I never had a birth certificate. I was born in Athens in early 47, just after the Civil War. And so when I was born, I just came, I was on my father's papers, so I didn't. And so while I was there, I thought, I'd like to see if my name is written somewhere. So I walked into the office. I speak Greek. French was our first language, but Greek we spoke at home. And I went up to the man at the booth, and in Greek, so I told him my birth date and etc. And he pulled a ledger from behind him, and he ran his finger down, and it was all written like with pen. I can't read or write Greek, I must say. I can speak it. And he said, you're here. And I went, oh, am I? And then he looked me in the eye, and he put out his hand, and he shook my hand and said, congratulations, you're an Athenian. And when he said that, my tears welled up, and I was so emotional. And I said, oh, am I? I'm going to cry now. And he said, don't cry, dance. But that's how I got my book title. My parents used to dance a lot. My mother was she was 16 years younger than my dad. She was very traumatized. She was 11 when she was called a dirty Jew in Poland, and she was slapped by a couple of boys, thrown to the ground. She came from a doctor's family. Her mother was a doctor. Her father was a doctor. She never thought of herself as a Jew because we didn't have a Jewish upbringing, but we were culturally, nationally, we were Jewish. My father, this is on my mother's side. And so with that, she was very, very young when the Nazis came in. She was 16 when her mother was taken, when she went on the run and she had false papers. And she survived on those false papers until 1944, taking all these different roles. Eventually, she was caught by the Gestapo. She left us her story. She wrote it for us. And she said in that, I wasn't interested in my father's story when he was writing it for us, because when you're young, you don't want to know all that. It's all about you, your own life, who you are, your friends, etc. But then she realized how important it was. So she wrote this story for us up until the time that the Gestapo got her. And that's where she stopped. I said, Mum, how about we interview you? She was dying. She had cancer, and we knew she didn't have long. And so I said, well, how about we interview her? And we did. But unfortunately, those tapes were lost in my house burning down, and I never took copies. So that's one thing, always take copies. So I lost her voice. My father, the Greek, Spanish, French, Jewish man from Thessaloniki, 99.4% of all the Jews were exterminated in Thessaloniki. He didn't talk very much. I grew up with their numbers on their arms, but they loved life. They celebrated everything. We celebrated Christmases, we celebrated everything. And they said, go and find where God is for you in your heart. But we're Jewish through and through. She used to say, you can change your religion, you can call yourself anything, but when a canary is born in a horse stable, it doesn't make it a horse. So you are what you are, what you are. Well, my father was taken up to the camps, and my mother was there. He was a very high elite prisoner in the commando that went onto the platforms when they pulled the prisoners out, the people out of the trains. And they would collect all their luggage and everything, and they would secrete it away, and they bribed the guards, etc. And then they would also chat up the women in the women's camp because they were also electricians. He made a pass at my mother, this young, traumatized girl who'd lost everybody, and she knocked him back. But then they went into different camps. They were marched through the forests and they found themselves in Auschwitz. There's a beautiful story how they re-met again in the Red Cross canteen in Paris, and he made a pass at her, and he said, don't I know you? And she said, I know you men. You say that to all the girls. And he said, isn't your name Janine? And with that, she knew that he knew. So they got engaged, they were married in London, and then we migrated to Australia. This book is their story. It's exactly as they wrote it. My father's voice. Oh, I'd found my father's story in the Holocaust Museum in Washington in the United States of America. There were 7 hours of interviews there we knew nothing about. I translated it, I transcribed it, I went away for weeks listening to my father who had passed. I did my forgiveness, I did everything. This book I did for my family to know their story and for my ancestors to know that they're not forgotten, that their names are now in the book. They died as a number, but their names are there forever. And the book could not have happened if it wasn't for so many people who have helped to make it happen. There's an audio book out now. Maria, who's here, we've got their voices. My father's voice, my mother's voice, their spirit, and then there's my story. I'm part 2 of it. And if it wasn't for all these people, it would never, ever have happened. And I'm so grateful because it belongs to everyone. And the whole story in it is about forgiveness. It's about, doesn't matter where you go. And I've had my depths. I'm a single mum of twins. They're nearly 50 now. I raised them on my own. They were also a product of war from the Vietnam War. Their father, who was traumatized, he never saw them after they were 10 months old. And so I just struggled along, 1972. So it's about rising above the worst and dancing through life. And I really want to honor all those people. If I did a list of everyone that helped me with this book, supported me with money, with, enthusiasm, being there, putting me up in their places, it would not have happened. And that's why I'd like to finish off by saying it takes a village to raise a book. And that's mine. Thank you.